I am 80 years old now. Most mornings are quiet. I sit near the window and watch the light arrive. It does not rush, neither do I. When you live this long, you stop counting years. You start noticing moments. Small ones. The kind you once walked past without seeing. It took me 55 years to learn what I am about to share. Not because the lessons were hard, but because I was busy living as if time would always wait for me. This is not advice. It is simply what remained after the noise settled. Lesson 1. Time was never the problem. For a long time, I believed time was something I was losing. I used to say, there is not enough time. Not enough time to rest. Not enough time to listen. Not enough time to sit quietly and feel my own life. I blamed the days for being too short. I blamed age for moving too fast. But now looking back, I see something more honest. Time was never rushing me. I was rushing myself. I filled my days with urgency that did not belong to them. I treated every hour as something to use, instead of something to live inside. I gave my attention to worries that disappeared, to problems that solved themselves, to expectations that were never truly mine. Meanwhile, the important moments waited patiently, a conversation that could have gone deeper, a pause that could have brought peace, a simple morning that asked for nothing at all. Time did not take these things from me. I stepped past them. Only later did I understand this quiet truth. Time does not need to be managed. It needs to be noticed. When I slowed down, time did not shrink. It opened. And in that opening, life finally had room to speak. Lesson 2. I misunderstood success. For most of my life, I believed success was something outside of me, something visible, something that could be measured or confirmed by others. I thought success had a shape, a position, a number, a moment when someone would say, "You made it." So I spent many years reaching, climbing, comparing. And sometimes I did reach the things I wanted, but the feeling I expected never stayed very long. There was relief, there was pride, but soon after there was another goal waiting. What I did not understand then was this. Success that depends on constant movement never allows you to rest. Only much later did I notice what truly stayed with me. Not the achievements, not the recognition. What remained were the quiet days that felt complete, doing work without hurry, sharing a meal without distraction, ending the day without the feeling that something was missing. Success, I learned, was not about reaching higher. It was about feeling settled where I stood. When I stopped asking, "How far have I gone?" and started asking, "Am I at peace here?" My idea of success finally grew calm. And in that calm, I found something I had been chasing all along. Lesson 3. I spent too long being hard on myself. For many years, I believed being strict with myself was a form of strength. I thought self-criticism would keep me careful, that replaying my mistakes would prevent me from making new ones. So I carried my past with me everywhere. Every wrong word, every missed chance, every moment I wished I had handled differently. I spoke to myself in a voice that was sharp and unforgiving, a voice that never rested, a voice that never said, "You did what you could." What I did not see at the time was how heavy this became. Not heavy with wisdom, but heavy with exhaustion. Years later, something quiet changed. I realized that understanding teaches more than punishment. That shame does not create growth. It only creates distance. When I began to look at my past with gentleness, I did not excuse everything. I simply allowed myself to be human. The mistakes did not disappear, but their weight did. I learned that kindness toward myself did not make me weaker. It made me honest. And in that honesty, I finally felt free enough to breathe. Lesson 4. People mattered more than being right. For a long time, I believed clarity came from being correct. That if I explained myself well enough, others would understand. And if they understood, things would be better. So I spoke often. I corrected gently at first, then more firmly. I held my ground even when the room grew quiet. I remember the feeling of being right. It was sharp and brief. What followed was distance. Only later did I notice what I had traded. Understanding for certainty, connection for control. I began to see that most disagreements were not about facts. They were about feeling heard, feeling respected, feeling safe enough to stay open. When I learned to listen without preparing my reply, something softened, not just in others, but in me. I did not lose my voice. I gained presence. Some conversations changed direction. Some simply ended peacefully, but fewer ended in silence. I learned that being right can close a door. Listening can leave it slightly open. And sometimes that small opening is where trust quietly returns. Lesson 5. I waited too long to enjoy the present. For much of my life, I treated the present moment as a place to pass through. I was always preparing for what came next. Planning, improving, enduring. I told myself that rest would come later, that peace belonged to a future version of my life, one where things were finally settled, but the future kept moving, and I kept waiting. I did not notice how often today was asking for my attention. A quiet afternoon, a familiar face, a moment that did not need to become anything else. I thought being present meant stopping everything. It did not. It meant allowing myself to arrive where I already was. When I finally slowed down, nothing dramatic happened. The world did not pause, but I did. I noticed how often I had been elsewhere, even when my body was here. The present moment was never empty. I was simply too busy filling it with later. I learned slowly that life was not waiting for me to finish something important. It was waiting for me to notice that this was already it. And once I allowed today to be enough, I stopped feeling late to my own life. Lesson 6. I carried fears that never came true. For many years, fear walked quietly beside me. It did not shout. It whispered. It asked questions that had no answers. What if this goes wrong? What if I lose what I have? What if I am not ready? So I prepared for futures that never arrived. I replayed conversations that never happened. I imagined endings long before beginnings had a chance. Fear felt responsible. It felt like caution, but it slowly took more than it gave. When I look back now, I see how little of it was real. Most of what I feared never came true, and the moments that did bring difficulty also brought strength I did not expect. Fear spoke loudly in my mind. Reality arrived quietly, one step at a time. I learned that fear often asks us to live ahead of our lives, to suffer twice, once in imagination and once maybe in reality. With time, I stopped arguing with fear. I simply stopped following it. I learned to meet life as it came, not as I imagined it might. And in doing so, I found that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to stay present anyway. Lesson 7. Acceptance changed everything. For a long time, I believed acceptance meant giving up. I thought it was something you did when you had no strength left, a quiet surrender to disappointment. So I resisted. I pushed against what was, against people, against myself, against the way life unfolded. What I did not understand then was how much energy this resistance required. Acceptance did not arrive suddenly. It came slowly, through small moments of honesty. Moments when I stopped asking, "Why is this happening?" and allowed the moment to simply be. Acceptance was not agreement. It was not approval. It was the decision to stop fighting reality. When I accepted what I could not change, something inside me softened. Not because life became easier, but because I stopped carrying it with clenched hands. I noticed that peace did not come from fixing everything. It came from releasing the need to. Life remained imperfect. People remained human. So did I. And in that imperfection, I found room to breathe. Acceptance did not shrink my life. It widened it. By meeting life as it was, not as I wished it to be, I finally felt at home inside it. Now at 80 years old, I no longer feel the need to hurry. There is very little left to prove, very little left to explain. What surprises me most is not how much has passed, but how simple life feels when I stop arguing with it. The days are quieter now, not empty, just quieter. I notice things I once overlooked. The way light moves across a wall, the sound of breathing when the room is still, the comfort of doing nothing in particular. I used to think wisdom meant having answers. Now I think it means making peace with questions. Life did not become meaningful because I understood it. It became meaningful because I stayed with it. Through change, through uncertainty, through letting go. Time continues, as it always has, but it no longer feels like something I am chasing or something that is chasing me. I am simply here, in this moment, not early, not late. And as I sit with the quiet, I realize this gentle truth. Life was never asking for urgency. It was asking for presence. So I let the moment stay. I let myself stay. And somehow, after all these years, that feels like enough. Thank you for watching this video. Share your experience in the comments section.